Hey guys, it's Coach Britt. Welcome to our Monday Morning Brain Clubhouse, where we're going to be talking today all about sugar. This is a place where we want to grow in our health, in our life, in our business, or our ambitions. And we can't do that if we physically are not functioning optimally. So this is the part of this process where we're focusing on more of our physical body, nutrition, and health. This is the part of the food series. So today we're going to talk all about sugar, and this is an incredibly important topic to discuss. It's talked about a lot. I think that we can no longer say we don't understand that sugar is not ideal for our optimal health. There's enough information out there that has made that really, really clear. However, it is often talked about in a way where we talk about weight, we talk about all the disease related things that are connected to sugar consumption in our children and hyperactivity and things like that. And so we understand that, our kids today, I think they said something like by age 8, they've consumed more sugar than most people did in their entire lifetime until, the last couple decades, when sugar became just such a rampant part of our diets, and processed food consumption just became such a, overwhelming amount of what people are eating. So what we want to talk about today is a little different understanding of sugar that maybe makes it a little more clear. So we can be motivated to change this aspect of our habits from a different perspective for our own life success, not just our health and our weight and those kind of things that are atypical, right? So back in about 1960, the sugar industry actually paid Harvard scientists $50,000 to blame saturated fats for a myriad of health issues in people and kids, and a lot of the things that we're seeing increase due to, again, lifestyle related factors and processed foods and things that were being added to diets. Why did they do this? Because the research at the time was showing that sugar was highly implicated in the growing health crisis. And that obviously was not good for business. And that is when you saw that turn for a while there, especially come 80s, where everything went fat-free, right? Now everything's great because it's fat-free, and it was just loaded with simple carbohydrates, processed garbage, and tons of sugar. It was a detrimental time for food. Not that it's gotten a lot better now, but we like to hope more people are keen to this fact. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information. One of the biggest things that I always remember, like I reference this a lot, is I read a book once about a lady who, it was personal development, I'm sure. And she wanted to quit smoking. She was smoking for a long time, and she was really struggling with quitting. So in the meantime, while it was hard for her, she would read books and books and information, everything she could get her hands on as to how detrimental smoking was for her health. Until eventually her subconscious was so programmed with that it became easier and easier to let it go, and eventually she quit. So this education, I hope, is a critical component of a great switch in your life that will help benefit you, benefit your business, and especially benefit your brain. So that's the biggest thing that we are looking at today. So high sugar consumption creates excess glucose in the brain, leading to cognitive decline. So how this works is that the blood-brain barrier, like we've talked about before, is semi-permeable. So when we get too much insulin in the brain, it affects certain neurotransmitters, such as our dopamine receptors. So we're supposed to have some insulin in the brain, but when our dopamine receptors get out of whack, we start having tendencies such as, these are the things that you see in drug addicts, and it diminishes our dopamine production. So that's where you see addiction. When they say that sugar is just as addictive as cocaine, this is where they're not lying, because your dopamine is a normal hormone that needs to exist in the brain. It's what helps pick us up. It's one of those happy hormones. Well, excess sugar consumption shoots off so much dopamine consistently, it ruins that ability to manufacture it. So when you're not supplementing, essentially, your brain, your body with excessive insulin and sugar, then you crash. And it's not just an energy crash. We're talking about depression and a lack of happiness, because we've eaten too much sugar, because our bodies have been loaded on too much sugar for too long. This is really critical, especially for me to drive this point home for our children. We're seeing depression very early on in kids at rapid rates now. Mental health is a big, big deal. And a lot of these kids are living on sugar cereals in the morning and garbage at school and throughout the day and at night, and processed junk. Their sugar consumption, like I said, by age 8 is what a lifetime would have looked like for our grandparents. And this has very negative effects on their natural abilities to create dopamine, as well as us in adults. And these are the commonalities that we see in, people with addictions. So your dopamine as well, how this is a double whammy, is 50% of your dopamine is actually made in your gut. But when you're consuming massive amounts of sugar, this often leads to things like SIBO and overgrowth issues of bad bacteria, because opportunistic bad bacteria and yeasts and things that need to stay in check thrive on sugar. So if they're getting that sugar, they are just overtaking a lot of the good bacteria that's supposed to be functioning and doing things like create dopamine. Process vitamins, do a lot of the healthy things in our body are being taken over by the sugar-loving bacteria. And those sugar-loving bacteria are communicating to the brain that they just want more sugar because now they are so dependent on it. What's scary about this and hopeful is that it can actually cause dopamine gene expression change, meaning we can pass down dopamine intolerance and a propensity toward addiction to our kids, not just in food, but in drugs, a propensity toward depression because of this very thing. Now, this isn't just sugar. Our gut bacteria are passed on to our children, but sugar is such a massive culprit that we need to understand the weight of this substance and of this behavior and how it's actually affecting people. They've coined a new term now. I don't, if you haven't heard about it, it's called type 3 diabetes. So this is actually a term that was used to describe the constant connection between type 1 and 2 diabetes and Alzheimer's disease. So basically, neurons in the brain are no longer capable of responding to insulin. So when I said that, like, your brain actually feeds on insulin, it needs insulin to function. That's what is essential in your brain for basic tasks like memory function and a lot of cognition and learning. Again, back to our kids, remember how important that part is. That's being stunted because of over insulin. So just like a person with diabetes, their insulin production, cops out on them. That's what's happening with our brain. It's getting such an over abundance of insulin that then it's becoming non-responsive to it, which means that those cognitive functions, memory and tasks and learning, are diminishing now. And this is where they're seeing a big connection between people with Alzheimer's disease and degenerative mental abilities and things that are similar to diabetes, hence also linked to sugar consumption and poor diet and lifestyle. So what do we do about this? Well, clearly whole foods, real foods, that's what it always comes down to. They're going to protect your brain and your kids. And then we're going to talk about what actually to eat. So next week, we're going to talk a little bit more about fats, the healthy fats, the things that your body and your brain really thrive on. So I'm excited to cover that one. But today, on an end note with sugar, keep educating yourself. I mean, really do it for your children and for yourself. If you experience brain fog and all those things, sugar is one of the most important things to attack from the get-go. Everybody asks me where would they start? Where do I start on this gut thing? Where do I start when it comes to eating healthy or, making a lifestyle change? And there's two components. One is the mental part of it. One is the mental part of just, deciding something to latch onto. We'll talk about that a little more in future episodes as well. But latching onto something that means more to you than the diet, than the body, than anything like that. Something that's exciting, that drives you. The reason why you want your brain and your body to be at their best. Latch onto something bigger and then cut out the sugar. Eat real food. Cut out sugar. There's a time and a place where you want to eat birthday cake with your kids. And when you get to a certain place where your diet is clean enough, then you can have a day like that where you enjoy something like that, and you're probably going to be okay. But until we detox from this addiction, until we get it out of our everyday food consumption, it's going to keep leading us down a really negative path. And we owe it to ourselves and our kids to really live our best life. and grow our best brains and achieve everything we want. So see you next week.